This is the Healthy Business Podcast, the show for ambitious business owners who want to grow and scale in a healthy way. I'm Sarah Cook, and I'll be sharing with you tips, inspiration, and proven methods from leading business experts, entrepreneurs, and health and wellness professionals to help you grow your business with more income and having more impact, but in a way that works for you. Because when you have clarity and strategy, you can achieve the results you want. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Healthy Business Podcast. I am so excited because I have the wonderful Maxine Brown joining me today, and we're going to be delving into all sorts of life-changing things, which is, I hope, going to be interesting for you guys to listen to. Maxine, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, me too. And you've been on a journey yourself, which we're going to delve into, and have had lots of different curveballs thrown at you, but has ultimately kind of led you to where you are today and the decisions that you've made today. But before we delve into all of that, we are going to ask a question that I ask all of my interview guests. And I'd love to know your answer to: what does a healthy business mean to you?
Healthy business to me is obviously making sure it's sustainable. But my main objective in my business is to help as many people as possible. And as long as I can do that, as well, and making it sustainable for myself, then I'm quite happy. I don't want to take it to a huge height. I want to keep it quite small, so that I am able then to do the best I can for the other people around me that I want to help, and they need the support. Because I found that years ago, which we'll obviously discuss later, that there wasn't anybody really for me to go to, and also there was waiting lists and things like that. So now I just concentrate on supporting people that need it immediately, and they can contact me whenever they need to, sort of thing. And that's the way I work with majority of my clients.
I love that. There's a big kind of sustainability thing in there, isn't there, of recognizing how you want to run your business and actually doing that, and also recognizing what your ideal clients want and providing that business support and business service in the way that you want to, but also that is going to get the best results for those people that you can help. And you're a life coach. So as kind of by way of introduction, you're a life coach. You help lots of people. And I guess through your own experiences have kind of helped people recognize that it's okay to be okay, but also navigate through any changes that are going on in their lives or wanting to make in their lives, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So basically anything that's been thrown at people, if they're struggling or anything, yes, you can go and speak to your friends and family and things like that, but sometimes you don't want to, and they won't delve and ask you questions that you really don't want to answer. And so you can come to somebody like myself, and it's a chat really, and it can be scary sometimes, but once you start with the chat starts and everything like that, it opens up, and 9 times out of 10 answer your own questions, and that's what it is. And you just need somebody to bat ideas off, and you can go deeper and deeper, and it just gives you that support and sometimes you don't want to ask people because you don't want to burden other people. And so then that's another thing, you can come to me and burden me with your things, so it makes you feel better, because it makes a huge difference to your life if you can get it all out of your head.
Yeah, so true. And I think there's a couple of things in there really around how, as much as our friends and family are there to support us, there is an emotional connection, and that comes with, great support, great love. But sometimes we need something that isn't emotionally connected. And as you said, can ask different questions or ask questions in a different way that get us to think about things in a different way, which then gets to the answers potentially that we need. And that can be a scary process. It can be quite a vulnerable process as well. And we don't necessarily want to have those vulnerabilities with our family and friends, as you were saying. Like, it's that kind of double-edged thing, isn't it? Like, their emotion is brilliant and supportive, but sometimes we need something different to that. And when we are going through life changes or experiencing curveballs or trauma or whatever it is, there's a lot of emotion there anyway. And going to someone who can cut through that and help you navigate through that emotion, I think, is really key. Tell us a little bit about your story, because it's fascinating and incredible in both ways. And I know has kind of helped you kind of get to where you are, but also want to give back to so many people as well.
Yeah. Well, in 2000, well, it started in 2009. My daughter, who was then 19, she'd been taken poorly. She had swine flu. That's it. It was really bad in 2000, end of 2009. And Liz, being a diabetic, took it very, very badly, but it wasn't diagnosed straight away. So she was eventually rushed into hospital onto a life support machine. And it was an awful time for 8 weeks, on and off. We had, she was on the support machine for about a week. And then we ended up going into another hospital because her kidneys are packed up because of the diabetes and the illness and everything. It just broke her down. Got her home 4th of December, and her birthday was the 6th of December. So we managed to get her home to celebrate that. She was still very, very poorly, but being at home, we were making her move more, and she was drinking more fluids. And over the Christmas period, her kidneys started working again. So she luckily stopped the dialysis and everything. And then she got the all clear on the Tuesday, I think it was about the 12th of January. So, and she was allowed to start going back to college and back to work, which she was absolutely ecstatic about, because she was so bored. She'd been off since the end of October, and she liked to party.
And as a 19-year-old, that's hard.
It was, trying to keep her occupied and stop being mardy, and it was a nightmare. So on the Friday, she said to me, "Can I go out?" I said, "You can, but obviously be sensible, because you have been very, very poorly. Don't go boozing or anything like that. Just listen to what the doctors said." She said, "Yeah, Mummy, I'll be good." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but I'm just obviously concerned." So she went out on the Friday night and met up with all her friends she hadn't seen for ages. And so Saturday lunchtime-ish, I went and woke her up, because I said, "Right, come on, you're a typical teenager and staying in bed." I said, "Tell me all about it." And we had a really good chat and everything. She'd had an amazing time. That afternoon, she sent me a text and said, "I'm going out, Mummy, with my friend. Not sure." And I said, "Oh, where are you going?" She said, "I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm like you, can't make my mind up." I said, "That's okay, no probs." I mean, she was 9. Oh, in fact, she was 20 right now, because she just had her 20th birthday. And I'm afraid that was the last time I ever heard from her. There was a car accident. We don't know exactly what time, because I'm afraid the car wasn't found until the early hours of Sunday morning. My mobile went about 5 o'clock, and I'd been up and down all night waiting and trying her phone, but it had gone dead. And I thought, she's gone to a friend's to stay, because she would never, she was sensible like that. If she had been out, she'd just nipped to her friends to stay. And at the end of the day, she was an adult, so I couldn't dictate what she should and what she can't do. My mobile went, I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just jumped up and grabbed it. And the person on the other end just said, "Is this Maxine?" I was previously married, turned, and I said, "Yes, can I help you?" And they said it was the police. Was I Lizzie's mum? Yes. Is she at home? And I knew she wasn't, because I kept going in, but I still went back into her bedroom, and I said, "No." And they said that there'd been a car accident, and I said, and they said, but I think from what I remember, they couldn't tell me anymore. And I said, "Well, have you checked?" They didn't know where the girls were or something. So I said, "Have you checked the hospitals?" And they said, "Look, we're coming to see you." I said, "Okay." So then I phoned all the hospitals around, and the time just flew. And within about, I think, 20 minutes, police knocked on my door. And I'm afraid they said that she died. They had, but they couldn't obviously tell you over the phone. And then, so this was January the 16th. It was the 17th, because it was the Sunday that they came round, because they didn't find the girls. Lizzie was with her best friend, well, one of her really close friends, and she was driving, and I'm afraid she had died also. So, it was, and Liz was our own daughter. So it was just, my life had just ceased, really, because I did everything to help her and wanted to, because she was growing into such a clever young lady, and she was doing so well at everything. So it was, my life just came to the standstill, and you have to phone and tell everybody, which was awful.
Really hard, especially after the last few months that you'd been through of, the emotional turmoil, it's just your internal capacity, not just as a mum, but just as a carer, and everything that kind of goes with that. And then to have something even more life changing to happen to
That's,
you is just
yeah, it
incredible.
was, yeah, it was. I mean, even the hospital put a tribute out because they'd nursed her back from being poorly.
Yeah.
To then hearing this happen, I mean, it shocked so many people. And so we obviously had to go through everything and tell everybody. And my husband and I then had to start living our lives as much as we could. We'd been together, well, since I was 17, so we'd been together an awful long time. It was coming up to our 25th wedding anniversary in the August. And we were struggling. And he kept saying he couldn't cope. And I kept saying, please talk to somebody because it's so important. And I asked his friends to talk to him. And then in May, things had not been brilliant. He'd been drinking an awful lot and we weren't talking as much and as properly as we should. But I'd noticed different things over the previous weeks. He was going out more, not coming back till late and things like that. Anyway, on this particular Sunday, he got up, went out, and I tried to call him, wasn't answering. I texted him, said, "Where are you?" Nothing. And then came back in the afternoon and I said, what's happening? Where, and he just turned around and said, "I don't love you. I don't love anybody anymore." And I went, "Okay, we need to talk." And he said, "I don't want to." And he went back out. And I just thought, this is not right. So I just texted him because he wouldn't answer the phone and said, "Are you seeing somebody else?" And he texted back and said, "Yes." So I went upstairs, packed my bag and walked out of the house and never went back.
So many massive things there.
Yeah, it was, I mean, to say it was absolutely losing Liz in the January. I changed jobs in the April as well. And then the May, I left my just coming up for 25-year marriage, which, it obviously affected me. But because of what I'd gone through in January, I knew I had to live my life.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to waste it on somebody that didn't love me.
Yeah.
And especially afterwards, I found out he'd been having the affair when Liz was in hospital, being very poorly.
Right.
He used it because he didn't come to the hospital very much. But I knew he had a phobia of hospitals. He always said he didn't like them. But obviously, it wasn't that bad. He was going off and seeing the other woman.
Wow.
And yeah, and when you look back and think, I could see a pattern once I looked back and opened my eyes, but obviously I'd got everything else going on in my head because of losing Liz and everything else. So many
different coping mechanisms that are kind of coming to surface here of just from you both separately, but also just that awareness thing, I think is key as well, isn't it? Just different ways of dealing with things.
Yeah. So I left and got myself another little house and started life again. And I think I got a lot of strength from Lizzie because I didn't want to waste my life. She'd lost hers, and I think it would have been really, really cruel to have both of us not enjoy our life. She was such a vibrant young lady, and I just didn't want to disrespect her name. And she's given me the strength to carry on and do what I do now. I mean, it's taken me a long time to do my training, and also for me to be able to speak to other people to enable me to help them as well, because I had to go through my grieving. And I didn't just have the grief of Liz, I had the grief of my marriage, my job, because everything changed.
It's a complete starting from scratch in some ways, isn't it? Of just,
yes, it was.
Everything had changed almost overnight. It's such a short space of time.
That's right. And then even only a few weeks later, I met my now husband. We'd known each other brief to speak to and things like that because we lived in the same town. But it was only, that was the last thing on my mind, was to go and jump into another relationship. I thought, that's all I need. I've got all this going on in my. But we went out and we sat and talked for about 4 hours. Just constant, and we found so much in common. It was unbelievable. I've never met anybody we had so much, we enjoyed doing the same things and things like that. And that was it. We just clicked, and literally within 7 months I moved in with him. and we have a wonderful life. We got married, 2016. So 6 years after we met, we got married. Steve had never been married before. There was no children involved, which I know helped me, because I don't think I could have taken anybody else's children in.
That's
and it's probably selfish, but I needed just to keep my new life very small, because I think it just reduced the hurt then if anything happened. And so Steve just let me grieve properly. He gave me that support. He gave me when I needed it. I stopped work for a few months so I could get my head straight, and I stopped doing the job, and because I was in management and used to run multi-site companies and things like that, but I needed just to take a step back, and so I had 3 months off and went back into a hell of a lot lower paid job, but it was easy. It was a Monday 9 to 5, and it wasn't using my brain to an extent where I had lots and lots going on and couldn't concentrate on everything. And so I was doing a good job of what I was doing because it was an easy job for me.
Yeah. And I guess that's in some ways, just having that routine, but without having the pressure and the stress of something else. Yeah. Sounds like that's exactly what you kind of needed at that time.
Yes, and it was. And I think it was a good 2 years after losing Liz, I went to see a health genealogist. If my auntie had said to me, you need to go and speak to somebody. And I kept saying, no, I'm fine.
As a lot of us do, right? We go through things and we're like, oh, I can deal with this. This is fine.
That's it. And I think I knew deep down I did need to speak to somebody, but I didn't know who I wanted to speak to or who I could speak to. I wasn't offered any counselling or anything like that from the doctors. And I used to go and see the doctor because I was always feeling poorly. I mean, now I know it's because I was grieving and I wasn't in the right state of mind, but you don't realise what it is until you've been through it and everything.
Yeah, and I think there is that you don't know what you don't know as well, isn't there? And
that's
sometimes it is just exploring different things.
It is, totally. And I spoke to the health genealogist. I only had 2 sessions, I think I went with her. And I've had just everything blurted out, really, from years, even from going back to childhood and everything. And I walked out and looked like I'd been bawling I had been bawling for it, but I looked a mess.
Yeah.
My mum had come with me and she came, I went out, are you all right? Yes, I feel a lot better now, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I did, because everything had just released.
Yeah.
And I'd gone through everything and spoken about everything. And I just realised how important that was and how I wish I'd done it so much sooner. Because it would just have been a relief. It would have been a relief. But I probably wasn't ready then. And that's what people realize. Because with grief, it affects everybody differently. And it takes everybody a different amount of time to go through it and, come out the other side.
Yeah.
And so after it was probably the following year, I thought I need to start now doing some training. And so over the last 8 years, I've done so many different courses and learning different techniques and learning about grief and counselling and life in general, all different aspects of it, so that I could start helping other people. And that's, again, Steve completely backed me just over a year ago now, and said, because I was doing bits part-time and setting everything up, but I really, I loved my job I was doing because I had progressed again. I went back into having more different roles and being able to use my brain again and learning more and everything. But he said to me, look, you really want to do the life coaching and helping people, and it'll be ideal for our next venture. So I gave up my full-time job that was paid very well and said, okay, and set up my life coaching business.
Just amazing, the fact that you've gone through so much to then giving back. I love that. And I think it's, for many people, there's been a trigger that has led a lot of us into going in and doing what we are doing now. And we're so passionate about it. And I think it's just, I love it. This is why I love doing this podcast, because it's just so important to have these conversations and just what makes you you is what makes you you. And
Yeah.
all of the things that you've been through, all of the experiences that you've been through, that's what connects you with people, when you are running your own business. If we didn't share any of this truth, if you didn't share any of your story and just said, I'm a life coach, those people who are listening to this and really resonating with trauma or grief, you can feel that connection. But if we don't share any of that, then we're hiding so much of it as well. So I do massively appreciate, and I want to kind of mention this now, I massively appreciate you being so raw and open and honest and sharing your story, because I know, grief and trauma, it is hard to reflect on things. But also what I love is that you have taken those steps to heal yourself and to also then be able to give back, which I just think is the best gift ever, to recognize, almost your superpower, right? Like, you turned something that was just so horrific and so many life challenges thrown at you to be able to then help other people who really need your support, and the support that you would have loved had you been in that position had that been available for you, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, when I set up, obviously you get lots of gurus coming through to you and saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should be charging thousands and things. And I mean, and it really, really didn't resonate with me at all. And that's why I will never, my price is my price for the hour, and it will always stay like that. And it is very, very low. And I know it's very low. But I do that for a reason. It's not because, yes, luckily I don't need to have a huge wage income. But mine is so that I can help people, because that is the biggest, when you're in a really bad way and you're not too sure where to turn and things like that. When somebody says to you, right, yes, you can go and see somebody, but you've got to pay £150 an hour or £100 an hour, or you just go back into your shell, because you can't, that isn't the last thing. You need that on top of everything else you're going through. And I do, my first hour is always free, because you've got to make sure you can speak to that person as well, and they can speak to you, because not everybody gets on with each other.
Yeah.
And might not be able to have a chat and start
and
learning.
That's absolutely okay, by the way, isn't it?
It is completely. That's it. It's not a bad thing at all. But if I would never want somebody who's to have paid for the hour and come off it and think, well, that was a waste of money, I've really not enjoyed it and I've paid for it. But at least if we have that first hour to go through things and just be really open and honest with each other, and if because I might not be able to work with you and you might not be able to want to work with me, and that's the way I look at it. And so so it's just, I just keep everything like very basic, and it will always be like that, because I want it to be affordable.
It's so important, because I think, if we look at it from a pure business perspective, actually what you're creating is a sustainable business, but it's based on your goals. And I think, I talk a lot about, your version of success. It isn't necessarily about, all materialistic things. It's not necessarily about the amount of money that you have in the bank. Yes, that's going to motivate some people, but actually delving into what's important to you as a person, what your goals are, and then building the business that's going to support that is sustainable, that enables you to do things in the way that you want to do. That for me is just so important, and I love that. And actually, that's a really lovely segue into the fact that your next phase of your journey in your life is even more sustainable, right? And you've kind of made even more life changes off the back of everything that you've been through. So tell us more about this. It's amazing.
Well, we've recently moved on to our narrowboat. It was a dream of Steve's. He used to go on narrowboat holidays with his parents and his brothers when he was in his 20s and 30s and 40s, I think. I used to be, when I was growing up, my parents had cruises and we used to go on the rivers and everything, but I'd never been on a narrowboat. We had a holiday 5 years ago on a narrowboat for a week with his brother and his mother, which I loved the narrowboat, and I met some fantastic people. And so I said, we'll think about it and everything. Anyway, we start 3 years ago, in fact, probably just a bit longer than 3 years ago, we decided to have one built. So we drew the plans up and we found a builder. Then obviously COVID hit, so everything got delayed slightly.
Yeah.
But luckily we've watched it literally grow from the base plate up. And we moved on 2 weeks ago. or 2 weeks
Amazing.
this Friday. It's 2 weeks tomorrow. Yeah. And at the moment we're stuck in the marina because they're doing the stoppages, so we can't go out. But we're learning to live. We're having to fill our waters up, and we're learning to do everything, within a boat. And it's just amazing. And I can carry on doing my job because I do everything via Zoom or whichever way is easier for the client. And we're just going to go around the UK canals and rivers and live as eco-friendly as possible. Obviously, we've got technology because I'm a techno person, but I have got rid of so many clothes. It is unbelievable. And we've just, we're just constantly keep going back to the charity shop. We're doing it again tomorrow because we're not quite finished getting rid of bits and pieces, but it's amazing how little you need. And it's opened my eyes up very much so. Because,
but again, it goes back to that doing business in a way that works for you, not just location wise, but doing it sustainably, doing it from wherever you want to. And that is living the goals that you have set, which I just think is amazing. And that's what it should be about. When you're setting your goals, when you're thinking about your business, it should be about doing things in a way that works for you, in a way that works for you. And I think it's something that, in our wonderful world of social media and all those things that we have and that get surrounded by, which are brilliant and useful tools, comparisonitis comes in a huge amount. And what we see almost presented as success, we can feel guilty if we're not achieving that, or we can feel like we're failing if we're not achieving that. But actually, what we then drill back down to, and what I work with a lot of my clients on, is, what do you want? Like, what do you actually want? And when you get really clear on that, when you get awareness around it, then you can start building the plans around it. And that should be and is different for everybody. And that's also okay. And I think it's just so important to remember that, of doing life, right? Doing life in a way that fulfills you.
Definitely. You've got to have a work-life balance. Years ago, I didn't have a work-life balance. I worked and worked and worked. And I loved my jobs. I've always really enjoyed doing what I've done. But until I got into the relationship I'm in now, I realised how important that work-life balance was, even more so. And especially after losing Liz, there's no way I would ever jeopardise anything, because you've only got one life, and it's just taught me you've got to live it to the best of your ability. And that's why, if you need help, go and get it. If you need to speak to someone, go and have that chat. It doesn't matter what it's about, anything. Don't ever wait until tomorrow.
Yeah, I take it one step further, because I don't like the phrase work-life balance, because I think it's all life and work as a pillar of that. But I think, and I think you're almost a complete, picture of that. Like, everything that has been thrown at you, it's kind of come back into actually how important life is, and how important those relationships are, and the time we spend with the people that we care about. And our business should support that. It shouldn't be at the expense of all of that. And you've also written a book just in the mix of all of this.
I did. Well, I've done my story. It's 31 Days Life-Changing Journal, but it's my story explaining it. It's a sad story, or sad book to read until you get through to the end, and then obviously it comes out nicer. But it's explained. I found that journaling is so important. It's helped me tremendously. So at the end of the book, there's a 31-day journal. So, because once you get into a habit of writing a journal, you will keep doing it. And it's so good to get everything out of your head and onto paper, so you can see it clearer, and you can then go through it, and you can take out the bits that you want to keep and what you don't want to keep, and things like that. I've written that, and then I did, because I say how important it is to write the journal. I've written a year journal. It's got affirmations, and it's got sections for you to write every single day. And then at the end of the month, you can do a look back and what's good, what happened, what you're going to take forward. And it's just, I wanted something for me to write in. And so I've done it so everybody can write in it as well. Then it's through Amazon, so anybody can use them.
Amazing. So 31 Days Life-Changing Journal. I love the fact that you've kind of created something out of, what a lot of people wouldn't do, something positive. that can actually really help people, and not just made your life super positive and one that really works for you in a way that works for you, but also then giving so much back to so many people. If someone's listening to this and thinking, something's happened, maybe I haven't dealt with things yet, or I want to deal with something but I don't know where to start, what would you recommend? How do people either find you or find someone that they can talk to? Because I think that's, that first step can be the hardest.
It definitely can. Yeah, find me on my website. I've got mkblifecoach.com, and straight away. And it is, find somebody that you can talk to. But obviously if you go onto the internet and look in life coaches around your area, it depends how you want to interact as well. Because some people don't like Zoom. They want to be a face-to-face. Obviously, because of the last couple of years, people are quite happy, a lot more happier to do the Zoom side of things like that. But it's finding that right person that you, as long as you're happy when you find the person that you can and you feel that you can talk to, because that will completely change your life. And do it as quick as you can, because honestly, the difference that once you start speaking to that person, it'll make is amazing. And the other thing to do is start writing things down. Write to yourself or write to the person that you want to be and how you want to feel. Just start putting things into place straight away. And if it's somebody that's hurt you, write to them and tell them how you're feeling. You don't have to give it to them, but it's getting it out of your head onto paper. And it just helps you make more sense of everything.
Our head can be our worst own enemy, can't it?
It's terrible. It can be absolutely terrible, yes.
Overanalyze things, be so self-critical of stuff. And if that then starts impacting sleep and things like that, then that, it can very quickly go, the wrong way. And I've been in that situation from having sort of, postnatal depression and nearly losing my child actually during childbirth.
Yeah.
And it hits you really hard. And it's that awareness, that first step is really hard. And I remember thinking, I don't need any help. I'll be fine. I'll work it out myself. My husband was brilliant, really supportive, but actually it wasn't until I went and spoke to somebody else, and she was all about emotional detox. And I loved that phrase. And that's what kind of really connected me to her. Because I was like, I don't need a counselor. I don't need counseling. I don't have serious problems. But it's just talking. I think it's talking to someone who can ask those questions or can support you in a way that is, almost right at the beginning we were saying of not necessarily having that emotional connection. Like, emotions are brilliant, but we need to know how to deal with those and how to kind of navigate them. Having the right questions asked to us, even if they are uncomfortable ones, they are quite often the ones that are best to be asked, aren't they?
They are. And I think with family and friends, when you go to them, they will give you the answers that they know that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And it might, of course it is. And they just want to put their arms around you and give you a good cuddle. And sometimes that's not what you actually need. You need to hear some, sometimes it's a bit hard, but it will get you through to where you want to be.
Yeah. And I think what's also really interesting is when you do start talking and unraveling things, almost like what you were saying, that when you went to see someone that first time and more came out than you even expected it to, like right back to childhood. And exactly the same for me. And it was like, have I really been holding on to this? I didn't even know that was affecting me.
It's amazing. You do really think you're completely fine, and you never thought that you'd had those issues before. But once you start, everything starts unraveling and everything. But you do you can feel the weight off your shoulder when you come out of a session like that, and it's just a lovely, enlightening feeling.
No, it's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing, some really deep, raw, emotional things that you've been through as well. But I think also it's a really important conversation to have, because, there is always stuff that comes up for us, not necessarily to the extreme that you've been through, but I think, the last 2 years have brought up a lot of things for people, and trauma isn't necessarily a big, death or life-changing experience. Trauma can come up in all different levels for us. But if we suppress those feelings, if we suppress that and we don't let it out in whatever way we need to, it's going to come back at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It will just keep, basically, it layers. So it just keeps layering and layering within your mind and everything. So you do need to start dealing with it as quick as possible, because then you won't have as many layers to delve into, and you'll feel, you feel better so much quicker.
Yeah. And I think actually that's just sort of made me realize, and even more so, that, not only is talking so important, but actually don't leave it until the point where you need to do it.
Yeah.
There is unfortunately still a stigma around therapy and talking and counseling from traditional generations, but actually it is just talking. It's just unloading that internal burden that we all have. We've all got stresses and everyday things happen. But it obviously can go deeper than that. And I think
Yes,
the knock-on effect of what we're already starting to see from the last couple of years can be horrific if we don't end up doing something about it to look after ourselves. Self-care isn't selfish. It means that we can look after people in the best possible way.
Yes, definitely.
Just on that, where, obviously we've spoken about journaling and talking. Anything else that you would share as kind of tips that if people are just feeling a bit kind of overwhelmed, or, something's happened and they need some support, what else would you recommend if they're not quite ready to speak to somebody yet?
If they're not ready, meditate, and take time out for yourself, and don't feel guilty if you are taking the time out, and go and sit in some quietness and meditate. And just, there's some really good, if you go onto YouTube, you can get some fantastic meditation music and just relax, and it'll help you sleep as well, because as you said before, the lack of sleep and things like that will make everything seem a lot worse the next day. So try and do that, so it'll give you, and go for like hot baths and things like that, so you can just totally relax out and everything like that. And if you have a good friend, we're not saying don't talk to friends and everything, because they will obviously help you, but they will help you they'll give you the answers that you want to hear, but that may be your starting step, and it will just get you used to speaking and things like that until you find the person you actually need that's going to help you. But so don't bottle everything up. Look for somebody straight as quickly as you can, and even if it is a colleague or a friend. But there's lots. Just go onto the internet, because honestly, there is so many people out there that are willing to help. And I know, like, the doctors will also they will recommend people to you, but I know there is long waiting lists, and that's the worst thing, because if a lot of the time, if you need to speak to somebody, you want to speak to them within a week, and that's the thing. And so find somebody that can fit you in as quick as possible.
Yeah, such good advice. Where can people connect with you if they are really kind of feeling that pull towards you? Obviously, we've mentioned your website.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. So, yeah, and LinkedIn. So, just look for either Maxine K. Brown or MKB Life Coach, and you'll find me, and just drop me a message and I will respond. I respond pretty quickly to everything. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I love the fact that you have turned your, difficulties into passion, and actually turned that into an amazingly sustainable business that is creating and has created the life that, you have ultimately kind of led you to, which is just, yeah, it's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. If you are listening to this, please don't stay stuck. Please reach out. Feel free to message me or to Maxine, or someone else that you know can help. I think it's easier said than done, isn't it, to kind of think, I'll be fine, I'll deal with this as a passing moment. It can be, and that's okay. That's where we want it to get to, but we don't want it to get to a point where something really serious happens, or it's impacting your life or your business. So do reach out, make those steps. Thank you so much again for joining me, Maxine. I hope you enjoy your time on the narrowboat. I love the fact that you've done that as well. I can't wait to hear your next adventure. Thank you so much for joining me, listeners. Thank you for taking the time out today, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Healthy Business Podcast. To get your free checklist with 1-minute hacks to accelerate your business and find out more about our community, head to my website, sarahcookmarketing.com/healthy business.